Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Heather Deniston, and I'm here with Jennifer Anaker, Dr. Jennifer Anaker. Actually, she's a doctor too. And we are, you might notice we're actually in a hotel room. We're in my hotel room. We're in Arizona. We happen to be at a conference together, and Dr. Jennifer and I have been friends for quite a while, and she has a message that I've wanted to share for a long time. It's amazing. We got talking when we first met, and I think we stayed up till 12 or 1 in the morning talking about family, connection, gratitude, community. And so on this Thanksgiving week, and I hope you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving yesterday, we are talking about basically the connection between family, food, gratitude, community, and how that all works together. And you are the perfect person to talk about that because she comes from such a great family. But we're going to start by just, as you guys know, this is the Junk You Should Know Show. I'm Dr. Heather. And this is a show that's on every Friday at noon PST. And we talk about all things wellness, any junk you should know that has to do with health and wellness. That's what we discuss. And the sponsor is the Change Cave, which is a 12-module online learning institute. It's a fabulous place where you can get incredible bulletproof resources, wonderful accountability, and a community of folks who are all working together on their own wellness aspirations. And the very cool thing is that Dr. Jennifer is also a member of the Change Cave.
Yes.
And so do you have just a little something you'd want to say about that?
Yeah, just to give you a little insight about what it's like to be a part of the program. You know, it's this great thing that, the target is women between 40 to 60. And so, it's busy women that are looking how to get either to that next level in their health or learn more about health and have accountability. We all get going with something and then we get off of something. And that's the great part about the 12 unit modules. You can do it at your pace. And it holds you accountable. It's a great group of solid women that you absolutely adore. And you continue to get healthier as you should over the years, as opposed to only for that week type thing. So,
yes. Thank you so much for that. And we do have, it's a really great group. And it's what I wanted to create, but when it actually happened and people are so supportive of each other and people are making their goals where it was not happening for them before. That is just so wonderful, and I'm so happy. So we will put a little link to that in the comments below, and you can check that out. But that is our sponsor. Why we're actually here today is we are it's Thanksgiving, so we want to talk about family and food.
Yes.
Now, Jennifer, tell me a little bit. You have German background.
Yeah, mostly German. Yeah, a little English, but mostly German. Strong German background. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit, because you come from a town where your family has lived for generations.
Yeah, so I have, just even looking back over the generations, I've been very blessed. A lot of times people maybe don't know their grandparents, but thinking back, I still have all four of my grandparents.
Oh my gosh.
And my mom is from Iowa. My dad is from Wisconsin. So I've just have grown up in this culture of bigger farm families. Like I said, I was blessed to know not only these 4 grandparents, but also 5 great-grandparents, 1 great-great-grandmother. So just a lot of influence of, those that have come before me. And the beauty of having grandparents is not only what they represent, but also the stories that they get to tell you of the generations past, which for me is huge as far as being grounded in who I am. Yeah. And learning from them is huge. And I think, in a time of Thanksgiving, you look back at those generations, what have they, gifted you in knowledge and experience and, figuring out who you are in this world and where your people come from plays a huge part in that too.
Yeah.
So.
And we were talking about before the show starts is that a lot of us don't think about, we were joking about how I'm constantly searching for new tips and tricks and things and studying and all that stuff. And we were talking about a lot of your health and wellness, be it good or be it not so good, can come from your lineage and from looking at, well, what did your parents do and what did your grandparents do? And I would love for you to share a little bit about your grandparents' day-to-day, how they operate and what you've learned from that.
Yeah, I think just looking back at their lives, coming from farm families, my grandpa was a Lutheran minister, but still has the farming background. My mom's family has that farming background that Community was huge as far as helping each other out, harvest time, being there for your neighbor. They're smaller, Midwest communities. So when something happens in your community, be it good or bad, everybody's affected. Everybody, gives that helping hand. And then now I live in a larger area where that's, you really had to seek out your community as opposed to, be born into your community. And so, my grandparents in general, just looking at, they're in their mid to late 80s. My grandfathers are born in the same year. They're going to be 89 in March, both of them.
Gosh.
So, we've been blessed, and, I get to reflect back on their lives and, the things that they've done. Some things are, maybe something that other families don't have, and other things you might look back and just find some of those simple things that your grandparents do.
Yeah.
So,
and we were talking about kind of activity and mobility and all that, and you were sharing a little story about your grandparents still garden.
Yes. So,
this is so
both
awesome.
sets of my grandparents, again, in their mid to late 80s, they still both garden. One is super active, which I'll describe in a moment. But even on my mother's side, on the Boltman side, I was talking to my grandmother over her birthday in July, and I said, "Oh, do you have a garden this year?" And she's like, "Well, I wasn't going to, but." She was raised as a farmer. She married a farmer. She's like, I can't imagine not watching something grow. Yeah. And so when you're in an agriculture area, that just becomes a part of who you are. And then you look at the Anakers and, pastor's income, 7 kids, grew up farming. Well, they got really resourceful with what they grew up with and what they knew. Mm-hmm. And so you're looking at my grandfather, again, who's 88 years old, has a 70-foot by 70-foot plot. They live on the old Anaker farm in Wisconsin, where he's gardening in the land that his grandparents, bought when they came over from Germany. And so you're really working the soil and, in his garden, it's amazing. He's a wonderful gardener. I mean, just things that, it helps you to eat seasonally. It gives him that movement aspect of, maybe he's not going down to the gym at 88, but guess what? He's out watering, mowing the lawn, watering the garden, picking weeds and planting. And so you get that movement of squatting, sitting, bending, pulling, that, no, it's not the gym, but it might be more than what some of us do at the gym. So
for sure. And it's why you still have, 4 grandparents, particularly him, is because he's moving all the time. And, I don't know if any of you have seen that TED Talk, and his name is escaping me right now, but the name of the talk is called The Blue Zones. And it's talking about what are the criteria that create a centurion. And were 5 consistent criteria. And one of them was regular movement. It wasn't, like you said, it wasn't exercise. It was your grandpa just having a sort of an daily expectation that he's going to move his body, he's going to garden, he's going to run out to the mail, he's going to, and just keep moving and keep moving. And that's one of the things that is instilled in us, I think, generation after generation. And if it's not, we have to look to kind of reincorporate that into our lives, I think, because, that is longevity, is how much we're moving every day, right? Yeah. So I love this. Recently, Jennifer published a video of her canning. Yeah. And she had the cutest apron on, and we're going to put the link to that below. Oh, fun. But tell me a little bit about canning, because most people are like, seriously? What? Yeah. Like, as if. Like, I could just go to the store and buy those cans of tomatoes, right? So, canning is something that comes from our family roots for some peoples. And so why the heck would we even think about doing that? And what is it? What do you even do? Yeah. So a couple of thoughts come to mind. Going back to my, both sets have canned, but just going back to my grandpa that has a big garden, they will, of that garden, they'll can like 130 quarts of tomatoes. They'll eat it all year long. Wow. And so it's important to get that freshness, to be able to preserve it. There's all the great health benefits of it, and there's nothing better than a soup, in the middle of winter when you pull out a can of canned tomatoes. And it's stuff out of your garden. Like, a lot of times, in your grandparents' case it is. Yeah. When you showed the video, you actually did something really cool, which was, if you can go to a farmer's market and there's a bunch of stuff on sale, you can grab stuff and you can do this canning. Yeah. And like you say, you're eating really fresh, foods, and it's so wonderful. And to say the economic piece of it, right?
Yeah.
Like you save money, right? When you do this?
You have to, it's like any hobby. You have to kind of put your money into it at the beginning,
Of
where you get the supplies and whatnot. But it's, just even things like, tomato doesn't taste from the store the same as what it does in December, as what it does in July. You don't get those, the sugars, the natural, some of those added nutrients. And so, canning is one of those things that definitely you have to enjoy because it is some time in the kitchen. But for me, it's all about grounding and feeling the roots of what it's like to be a farmer again. Even the grandfather I'm talking about, that is a gardener, his mother lived in North Dakota, and she was on the thrashing, she was the kitchen person for the thrashing unit. So I'm sure they were in horse and buggy because it was pre-1930s. That's when my grandfather was born. So that kind of making and using the foods that are available and preserving the foods. Because when you live in the Midwest, at least when I was growing up, a lot of foods didn't make it there. I didn't have avocados until I lived out west.
Oh, my husband said the same thing. He's like, I didn't even try an avocado until I moved to California.
Yeah, I didn't know what a pluot was. My brother moved to Idaho, and I was like, oh my God, you got to try this thing called a pluot, But, it's awesome. It's just one of those things where, in the middle of winter, going back to the 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s, if you were going to feed these families, a lot of times big farm families, there's only so much food that, what are you going to get in the Midwest? And so you've got to be resourceful. And that's the farming mentality, really, is to be resourceful. And so, for my grandparents now, they raised 7 kids, but they, you could go to their house and they can still feed, 7 kids there, because they're canning 130 quarts of tomatoes, and they're freezing their broccoli and their corn, and they made jam with their, their strawberries. And
that's incredible. Does she have like a big pantry and it's just all cans? It sounds amazing.
Yeah, some of it goes downstairs, in their kind of pantry area. And, of course, if you're going to start freezing things, you've got to have more than one freezer type thing, So, and it's always packed full, they're ready for an army to come over for sure.
Which is so great. And you use the word resourceful, which I think is so great because we get a little overly used to I can just run out and grab whatever and that kind of thing. But I think there is something very, very solid to having a sort of a stock of food in your home and being able to pull and use that. And I think you get some diversity that way too. You start to go, oh, well, I've got something I could make a soup instead of just reaching for that same thing you have every week because you bought it at the grocery store or whatever.
Right.
And so I think that's great. Now, you also said that your grandmother did a lot of fermented stuff. Yeah. And so is that like cabbage and sauerkraut?
Sauerkraut, yeah. So being, of German ancestors, that was also just something that they did. Again, you're looking to, okay, what can we grow in the summer that we can keep through the winter? And it was obviously a part of their culture coming from Germany. And so, there's great stories about, my grandmother's grandmother where, here's this community of 2 farm ladies helping each other out. It's when you're making sauerkraut, you can now, if you go online, you can look it up and you can read how to make it in a mason jar. That's how I'll make it a little bit more. But, they had big crocks, a lot of times they came, they might have come over the boat with them, but they had these big crocks that they used to make sauerkraut. And so, here in this story is 2 German ladies that grew up with sauerkraut. They know the benefits. You've got your gut flora, you've got your vitamin C, K. It's just this really good immune system building that you need in the middle of the winter northern months anyways. But basically, here's 2 farming ladies that, in the middle, I don't know what it was, if there was a shed or they put, a barrel or something in one shed, but basically they froze it. And then, one lady would come or, get what they needed for their meal that night. And there'd be this big batch still there. And then the other lady would come, so
I love that.
A community of farm ladies that it is interesting to watch how, there's other stories in my family, how they really just took care of each other. Again, if they had more than, or, too many apples, here, give you a bag of apples, give you, sweet corn, I don't know, whatever that is. It's just, you didn't think twice about where, you always knew where your extras were going to go because they also helped you out as well. So,
and that sense of community again, I think it was Jamie Oliver that talked about how not only are mothers typically not teaching their daughters to cook, but
Yeah.
they're not also not teaching their daughters to cook. And so there's this loss of that connection of above down, but then there's also a loss of that community connection where we were saying like how meal prep is such a big thing now, but think about meal prep with 3 neighbor ladies. What you could get done there would be incredible, and it would just be such a great community thing to do. So I love that story about hacking off a block of sauerkraut to bring home to the family, running into your neighbor lady there too. It's pretty awesome.
Well, and even just, my grandmother up until the last few years, grandpa would grow the cabbage, and then my great aunt would come over, and they just, they'd have a day of it, where, you think about, not only are you preparing the food, but you're having the conversations and the community of talking and how are you? And you actually had time to figure out how they were versus, our society is like, how are you? And you're like 2 steps already past them as you're asking that, and so that kind of heart to heart, what's going on, and just sharing of stories, sharing of what their days were. And, it's something that definitely in this time period, you have to find your people and create it. Sometimes I know in Boise, people can be pretty resourceful where they might create like, oh, we're all going to do freezer meals, or, it's kind of that same type of thing where a bunch of ladies get together, they buy all the product and they sit and they have community doing it, which is great.
Yeah, I love that. It's relationship building, and you are feeding your family some incredibly healthy things, and you're taking, you're creating a situation where you bulk produce. So then during the week, you're not having to do that over and over and over again. It's a huge time saving as well. Another thing that I think is really important too, as we're talking about kind of Thanksgiving, is giving thanks. And how we have plasticized food so much that it's lost the meaning. And when we really sit down and think about the animal that sacrificed itself for us, or the plants that were grown and who grew them and delivered them to where we got them from. And so what do you think about that as far as when you sit down to a meal and spending a minute?
Yeah. It is true, right? We're living in this fast-paced society where I hurried up, grabbed something, sat down, not even thinking about it, quickly ate it before I went on to my next thing or my next thing on my to-do list, or, or even a busy mom who's just, feeding everybody else and just quickly snarfs a bite or two in between or sits down. And there's something to it. My grandpa's a Lutheran minister. And so of course, prayer is really important to the family. And, whether you're religious faiths or like you're saying, thanking the farmer, blessing the food, or just having gratitude, it changes your whole physiology on top of the spiritual awareness of what you're eating, that, your body begins to slow down. If you just even think about being in a go-go mode, your stomach isn't going to absorb what you're eating, and so it doesn't even going to utilize to its efficiency of what you're prepared. And so instead, if you even do something like take an inhale and exhale, that's going to get your body into what we call parasympathetic, where then the body's ready to digest. That's a part of your nervous system that can digest the food. So when you look at something in a traditional aspect, as far as prayer, you're giving thanks. It gives you a moment to exhale. The physiology of your body begins to change. The saliva that you need to process the food, the digestive enzymes, all of that. Like I said, it's slowed down, it's exhaled. If you want to think about gratitude, then, having a garden, if you think about, if you have a garden and you watch that, wow, I waited 3 months for that one red tomato, that'll give you gratitude for tomatoes showing up every night on your plate.
That's such a good point, because when you don't grow your own food, you've lost that. And we become so like sort of immediate, satisfaction and all of that. So I love that. Is thinking about the strength, like, so if you don't grow your own food and you're sitting down to a plate of hot food, who cooked it? Where did it come from? What grocer stocked it? Who drove it to the grocer? What farmer made it? All of those, looking at that chain, that was a huge amount to bring this to you, and just being really thankful for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
How are you going to spend your Thanksgiving?
How am I going to spend my Thanksgiving? The tricky part is, I live in Idaho, so I live away from my family.
Mm.
So even, we're in a society where people don't always live next door to their families. And so my families will get together. But I spend a good portion of the day Skyping and FaceTiming my family for that connection.
Yeah.
We will have the traditional meal. We will, take time and exhale and have the turkey and all of that. But I think too, even when you have family that lives far away, you've got to figure out rhythms and rituals so that way, even if you don't live there,
Yeah.
as hard as technology is, because maybe it gets us fast paced moving,
Yeah.
there's beauty behind that. There's beauty behind, having, my uncle who's in IT pass around the iPad that has, and I can say hello to all my aunts and uncles, things like that, in the olden days, you wouldn't have been able to do that, maybe enjoy a letter, but you don't always get to see their faces. So, I definitely will spend a good portion of my time on the phone, on FaceTime, and talking to my families in Iowa and Wisconsin.
And I love it because when my parents are gone now, but when they were here, that when they used to Skype or FaceTime, you'd just see like the top part of their head, and they'd be like, "Can you see me?" Like, Mom, yeah, and it's just right there. Like, just pull it, bring it down. It's like, and move your face away.
Yeah,
so funny. But I have an admission for you. I've never cooked a turkey.
Oh, really?
In my whole life, I've eaten a lot of it.
Might be the year. Might be the year. Yeah.
Yeah. My sister is very, very good. There's 3 girls in the family, and my sister is excellent at cooking it. In fact, her partner is very excellent at cooking a turkey. So the two of them get in there and do it. And my mom has a stuffing recipe that she uses and is incredible. And I love those traditions.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's the other great part about the holiday. It's like, put out something that's healthy, but enjoy the culture of your family. Enjoy the foods that you maybe only eat one time a year, but this was grandma's recipe, or this is what we've always eaten. That there's an exhale in understanding where you've come, and enjoy the foods that your family has always had. So.
Yeah, and I think that's so true, and to kind of cherish that piece of it. Many of you know I lost my mom about 1.5 years ago, and my cousin sent each of the 3 girls, including myself, a framed photo of my mother, each different, and she had gone through her mother's recipe book, my aunt, and found recipes that my mother had given Auntie Joan, and she put those in the frame, and it was just so amazing to go, my gosh, my mom wrote like just with her penmanship and gave it to her sister, and they shared that recipe together, and it was incredible. So you have siblings, right? Yeah,
I'm the oldest, and I have a younger sister and a younger brother too. So I know we kind of talked about as well, just when you were telling me that story before we got on today, just about, stop and enjoy the simple things, those simple moments that, gosh, I can think of just talking about, all these stories about my grandparents still has me thinking that, some of the simple things that my grandpa, when you leave the farm, will come out with you, will wait until your car is like, in the sunset kind of thing.
3 miles down the road.
Yeah, he just stands there, wait,
Bye.
Yeah, still standing, and as opposed to, we'll see you next time, and that hurriness that, enjoying just the slower pace of what a holiday can bring, because it certainly is about those little things, those little memories that you forget the fastness, but just some of those simple things that happen. I know we also just had some fun with me sharing some of the things that my grandma's done over the years with enjoying the simple things of when you stay at the family farm, how she'll pull out your high school picture that you haven't seen in 15, 20 years kind of thing. And I remember thinking, oh, that's nice. Look, Grandma still has that picture. And then my sister, who was living in Wisconsin at the time, to say, Jen, I know you think you're the favorite grandkid, but she does that for everyone. I'm like, what?
It depends who's sleeping in the spare bedroom. She'll pull out whoever photo is just a big drawer of grandchildren's
exchangeable
high school photos.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and just those little things where you go, that makes you feel so special. And you took the time even to think about that I was going to be in this room. And,
really,
just those little things is huge.
Absolutely.
So,
when I was a chiropractic student, I had a family from Mexico who are now living in California, very large family, and they all lived in the same home.
Yeah.
And they invited me for a dinner one night, and I come from a small family, not much extended, and I shared with you that I didn't know my grandparents at really. I mean, I knew them, but I didn't have, not like you have a relationship. I loved when you said that she started canning. And I think you got on the phone with your grandmother, and you guys like got into like a bit of a pissing match about who. And she's like, "Well, how many have you done?" You're like, "Well, I 60 or 70. Well, I've got 130."
Oh yeah,
already done.
yeah. This is a slight competition. I don't usually win, but I like to hear the tally.
Yeah,
she's a bean counter.
She's a bean counter.
She's like, "Well, how many do you have?" I'm like, as I'm counting the number on my shelf here, I don't know. I'm coming up with 40. You know, she's got the number right off the top of her head.
132.
Well, yes, yes. This year's final tally 132. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So I went over to this family, and here was the beautiful thing. So there was dad, grandfather, and 2 son-in-laws, and then there were the daughters and the mom and the grandmother. And so there were, I think, about 8, 9, 10 people living in this home, plus all the kids, little kids. And this was the coolest thing, because this was not something we ever did in my family. So I'm sitting there, we're chatting, and the fellows had not got home from work yet. And so I was helping with the ladies in the kitchen and stuff. And the gentleman got home, and it was the coolest, like literally everything stopped.
Oh, yeah.
And everybody met and hugged and kissed everybody. I mean, it was like a 5 or 6 minute thing. And I'm sitting on the couch going, whoa. And it was so because it's like, that's the priority. Yeah. Like, dinner can wait. Putting away whatever can wait, you know, and so that was beautiful.
Isn't that lovely?
It really was. It was nice. And it made me think, when you said little things, it's like this week, while you're in the moment of Thanksgiving and thinking about that, what kinds of little things can you think about? Oh, what could I do actually throughout the year that's going to nurture that relationship? My husband's brother, Dirk, is, and if you're watching, Dirk, shout out, is so good. He literally texts his brother and sisters every single morning. Just just
that's
a little
impressive.
Good morning, thinking about you. How are you today? It takes 2 seconds. Yeah, and yet his siblings know that he's thinking about them every single morning. So I do encourage you. We encourage you to think about this week as we're giving thanks for family and friends and all of that community, and we do build our own community. So if you have either not family, or you have a family that you're not close to, we definitely can build connections with our friends and create that family, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Did we miss anything?
I think we got it.
I think we did. We talked about some
got
great
it.
stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, when you talk about sauerkraut, what else is there?
I know.
There's not much else to talk about, actually. Brats. Does anybody make homemade brats?
No, but they definitely know what a good quality brat is and where to buy them.
No doubt.
They've got their place. You know, they talk about this place in Sheboygan. So you know, I just eat them. You know,
I love me a good brat. I'll be honest. In fact, I was visiting somebody. Where were we? We were in Lima, Peru, of all places.
Oh wow! And you got a brat?
Their version.
But here's
sausage. What's the funny thing is that I was sitting with some locals. And I go to get my food, and I come back, and literally the whole table is silent. And I'm digging in, and I'm like, "What?" And Paul, my friend who we're visiting, was like, "Did you get some for Brent?" And I said, "No." And I had 3 on my plate, which to me is not a lot. Yeah. And the whole table's like, "Oh my word, she eats a lot of brats."
So lady likes her brats.
No, I'm eating all 3 of these. Thank you all very much.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it was quite funny. Anyway. Well, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure.
For having me.
And I'm going to post a couple videos of Jennifer's down below, and I know she's going to be doing some more. So remember to follow her. And I look forward to having you back again sometime soon. And from our hearts to yours, happy Thanksgiving week.
Happy Thanksgiving, and love on your family.
Love on your family. Love on your friends. Yes. And we'll see you guys all next time. Please share this with your friends and family. And we'll see you next Friday, noon PST on the Junk You Should Know show. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.